Dear fellow redeemed of our Redeemer, here's a midweek devotional thought for the day. Years ago, I read the book by Philip Yancey entitled, Where is God When It Hurts? And it was helpful to better understand how pain can be a blessing. We often look at pain as a negative thing. But what about the person who has suffered such intense nerve damage that they've completely lost the sense of touch? Their nerve endings aren't firing up like they should. The brain isn't getting the message that something is wrong. For example, they touch their hand to a stove and it's getting grilled medium rare and they have no idea. That's understanding the sense of touch in a negative way, but in a way that can also be a blessing. Most often we think of it in a positive way, how we need that emotional, that positive sense of touch. If a newborn baby does not receive the tender touch of a fellow human being in those early weeks and months of life, it can have a tremendous detriment on their emotional development. As King David wrote in the Psalms, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are designed by a Creator to connect with one another through the sense of human touch. Perhaps we understand that better now than ever before. My family has found the perfect TV show to watch together. We had been kind of searching for something. We found it in the show called The Chosen. Maybe you've heard of it. It's a dramatization of the ministry of Jesus from the perspective of those who followed him. It's easily the best extended series I've ever seen on the life of Christ. It's great acting, high production quality. It brings out the culture of first century Israel. And it's pretty entertaining too. There's only one season so far of 8 episodes, but it gets my binge-worthy endorsement. But anyway, in a recent episode, we watched its portrayal of Jesus and the leper, the account from the beginning of Matthew chapter 8. We recall that in those days, people kept their social distance from lepers, not just 6 feet away, more like 60 feet and more. In this scene, the leper approaches Jesus and his disciples just out of the blue, and the followers of Christ recoil in horror. But Jesus, against the urging of his followers, goes up to the man who was hurting. And he was hurting in at least a couple of ways. Among other problems, like the open sores and the muscle weaknesses that leprosy would bring, he also would have suffered intense nerve damage. A leper lost that blessing of the sense of touch, which further endangered his physical health. And then obviously, with the extreme social distancing laws, he lost out on the emotional blessing of the touch of a fellow human being. We're told in Matthew's gospel that a man with leprosy came and knelt before Jesus and said, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. I am willing, Jesus said, be clean. Immediately he was cleansed of his leprosy. Now, if you know the account well, you realize that I skipped a very important phrase where Matthew, an eyewitness, tells us that Jesus, he reached out his hand and he touched the man. Jesus bridged the distance, the physical distance, the emotional distance, the spiritual distance between he and this leper. And he didn't have to. Plenty of times Jesus simply spoke and he cured people. But at other times Jesus made the point, and Scripture records that he touched them. Can you imagine the social pain of what it would have been like for people to keep their distance from you? Maybe you do a little bit. But can you imagine the emotional vacuum of not being able at all to sense, to feel the sense of a fellow being's touch at all? Can you imagine a leper's physical agony of having his body rot away? Now, thankfully, our souls will be with the Lord in glory when that happens to our bodies. But can you imagine this? After our skin has been destroyed, what it will be like that day when our everlasting souls will be reunited with our physically resurrected and imperishable, immortal bodies. We understand maybe a little bit how Job, how he spoke, whose body was afflicted with sores like a leper, whose friends had shunned him like a leper, who knew that his flesh would be destroyed. And yet he says, I know that my Redeemer lives, and in the end he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I will see him with my own eyes. I and not another. How my heart yearns within me. Your heart yearns within you too, doesn't it? Because not only will your body be raised imperishable, you also will see Christ with your eyes. And more than that, you'll touch him, and he will touch you and hold you. And you'll say, come and enjoy your master's happiness. And with every fiber of your being, with every nerve ending of your brand new suit of skin, that's exactly what you're going to do forever. God bless you with resurrection faith today.